I'm Chase.
And I'm Timothy.
And this is Customer Service.
Good afternoon, Cheddar. How are we?
Baby, we're rolling.
We're rolling. We're working today. Yeah. So how are you doing? What's going on?
Good. I've got a cherry Danish out there that I am excited to get at. So we're out of coffee beans now, and Graham used to make coffee in the Mocha Master. He doesn't do it. The last couple times I've done it, it's just trash. I haven't found that ratio yet, So I might pick up some coffee beans from Lolita's so we can make more Mocha Master, because I like to come back to it, every so often. Anyway, point being, I've been hitting Lolita's to get the $1 or $2 coffees, just a little 1-2s. Mm-hmm. And 3 times now, I've been standing in the line to check out, and they have that little pastry section that I never look at of just pre-made little ones. And this one time, this apple Danish just caught my eye, and I am like, that's my thing now. So I got a cherry one this morning. I think they're probably around $2.50, and it's just my little treat. You know what I mean? I just love it.
I never want a pastry in Saran wrap. Any pastry in Saran wrap, I don't want it.
I would reckon the reason I hadn't had them leading up to, I've been in Lolita's 700 times since starting this job, in 2017. So I don't know, man. But that's where I'm at. What about you?
Well, I don't think I'm going to match that energy. Nothing going on, really. Just kind of business as usual. Yeah. We have a really fun guest today.
Yeah, the South and Midwest Alliance was strong in this one.
Yeah. So we're interviewing Allison Crutchfield of the Ackleys, P.S. Eliot, Swearin'. I've been a fan of her music and projects for a really long time.
Yeah.
Really love Swearing. Like, it just is the type of kind of garagey punk situation that I just really like. It just kind of hits every level of my interest. You know what I mean? That kind of DIY sort of punk where it's still kind of the indie thing happening. I just right down the middle for me is interest wise with music. So I've loved that band forever.
It's something we played in the store a ton.
Oh yeah. Especially their most recent record. We played so much at the store in the past few years.
That tune, Dog Piles.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're really lucky to have her on, and she was super fun to talk to. She's obviously doing other things now, and we got to talk to her about that. Talk to her about L.A., where she's from, music she's into, drinks she's into.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was really fun. It was super cool that she did this, and super cool the conversation. So
yeah, felt like a homie.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
Yeah.
Hopefully she comes through town and we can all kick it. But
yeah, she's in the squad now. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's just pop right in.
All right. What are you up to this morning?
I mean, just working a little bit, just kind of, plugging in a bit. I don't know if you knew this, but for the last 5 years, I've done A&R for Anti Records. And so that's my main gig these days.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, that's kind of I honestly kind of, it's very sweet to hear you say that you're fans, because I'm I kind of barely play music anymore.
But that, I mean, you made good stuff, you know what I mean? I think it's I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, I made music for eons, and I don't have anything that I'd go back to and be like, this is really good. So maybe you hear a song you did and you're like, that's all right. I mean, I don't know if anyone really heard it, but you made great records.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's still a part of who I am, and I still do it here and there. I'm for instance, next week I'm going to it's the Merge 35th anniversary festival party thing, and I'm playing in my husband's band, so I'm going there to do that. And I do stuff every now and then. I've done a couple of fun things with artists that I work with. I played on the Tonight Show this year with an artist that I signed to Anti, which was really funny and amazing, and really wild that she wanted me to do it, but so flattering and sweet. And it's stuff like that. It kind of the pendulum fully swings, where it's I'm either I'm not doing anything or I'm playing on the Tonight Show. That's been the last couple of years.
That is wild that it could only be one of those two things. What totally. Do you like this better now that you've settled into it, or you miss it?
Totally. Yeah. I totally do. Which is I think anytime I tell anyone that, they think it's so weird. But I think that I mean, so my like trajectory and like my path in music is so weird because I am the twin sister of Katie from
Mm-hmm.
Waxahachie, and Katie from the time that we were teenagers has just been like manifesting like I am this person,
Yeah.
I am going to be
Yeah.
this person, this is like my thing. She's always like had that level of focus and like known that that's what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like the complete opposite. I've always been like, like do this, but then like, oh, I'm also gonna, do other things. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, I function that way. I think I like to do a lot of different things
Yeah.
and try a lot of different things. And so in so many ways, I feel like the work that I do now has been informed by the fact that I was like the sibling, a very, very close sibling of this person who has always like had the dream of being a musician, like a career musician.
Sure.
And I think that like in a lot of ways, it weirdly, I'm like, this is getting like a little hippie, but I'm like, it weirdly like led me to this work. I think like
Yeah.
just kind of being the sounding board of a person who has done this, hadn't wanted this her whole life.
Yeah.
So long-winded way of saying, I know that I was going to be doing this 10 years ago? No. Did I know I was
Yeah.
going to be doing this like before I got this job? No. But like I really the longer that I've been at Anti, the more that I feel like, oh, this really kind of does feel, for lack of a better word, like a calling. It feels like
Yeah.
something that I really enjoy and that's very rewarding, let's
Well, I
say.
mean, you have to understand because I feel like if I understand correctly, you grew up in a like a DIY scene, and like
Totally.
everything, like that's all I wanted to do when I started playing music was just I'll play in any band, I'll do any instrument, I'll do whatever you want me to do because I just want to play music. And then the first time like did any sort of touring or things got real in any sort of way, I was like, I don't like this. As soon as it's a job, I can't stand this. But then when I've set up now 2 businesses like this throughout my career, kind of 3, and actually every single thing has just been like all of the DIY scene informs what I do now. Like I didn't need to go to
Totally.
college. Everything I learned there is basically what I do now, which is just you set up something, you do it quick, you try to figure it out fast, you do it with no budget always to start with, figure out if you can add to it, and then I'm just basically building and selling merch in my mind still. It's not that much different. So it's like it all just kind of informs, just like it depends on like what you're end up interested in or what like feels fine to do as work, if that makes sense.
100%. I relate to that completely. I think that I had that same level of like when the moment that like my personhood, for lack of a better term, connected with my livelihood,
Yeah.
like and those two things were really, really tangled up. I think that I got really uncomfortable with that. And
Yeah.
those are the moments like when I start to think about like releasing music and touring and like the moment that I really started to have those thoughts of like, I don't know if this is like what I want to be doing. I don't know if this feels good for me.
Yeah.
It really has to do with that thing that you're saying of just like I don't know. Yeah, I think that, I was just talking to a band about this recently, about like a band who kind of comes from DIY and this idea of like sort of like coming up DIY, but then starting to engage with the music business and there is sort of, I think sometimes when I talk to artists who are dealing with that moment, I think that there's like a level of insecurity or fear about it. But what I try to like really instill in them is like, actually, you kind of know how to do all of this already because you've
Yeah.
just been doing it all yourself for so long. And that's really how I felt. I think like, I another reason why I like love doing this work is because I think the moment that I started to like really like engage with the music business as an artist, I said yes to a lot of things and like just kind of was like, yeah, totally, like whatever you guys say, like I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
down to
Yeah.
do it. And I just because I wanted to just be agreeable and I was just happy to be in the room. And I think like that's another thing that I like when I talk to artists who are starting to like do that. I'm like, you don't need to say yes. Like you can say no. You know what you're
Yeah.
doing. Like the reason that you're there is because people are excited about you. And so just, like kind of know that you actually know more than you think that you do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually making a really good point that I've never thought of before because I've tried to pinpoint like and I remember playing in a band that I did not like. It was just, but it was my band. I mean, I was the one who was doing it, and we played a show, and it was like there's a lot of people, a fair amount of people for me. I mean, you know what I mean? For at the time, the
Oh
bands
yeah.
that were opening were cool, and we had like an EP and it was fine. I didn't like it, to be honest with you, but it was just like we did it kind of fast because there was a recording opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And so, you
Yeah.
do it. And I was playing the song and I was like, oh, this is cool. People know the song. And then I remember thinking while doing the song, I really hate this song. Like, I don't, and my name's attached to it. I was like, I don't want this. But then as soon as I was like, guys, I don't like those songs. I don't want to play them anymore. We should write new things. I should do something different. Everyone was like, no, it's popular. People like it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't like that now I have to change something personal about myself to make this work. I would rather do anything else but this. Like, it just didn't, I could never get that to line up for me. And like you're saying, I think it's a little bit because I'm kind of a yes person too. Like, I kind of want to say yes to everything and just do a bunch of different stuff. I couldn't get that to line up with writing like personal songs. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's tough.
100%. Yeah. I completely connect with that. I think that, like, I don't know. I think that, being yes people, like, it's not a bad, it's not I'm like, I don't even say being like yes people is the right thing. It's more just like, I think I'm like, I have some people pleaser tendencies that I'm like very aware of, and I try to keep in check as much as I can. But
you're in the room with Midwesterners right now.
Totally,
this is how we operate.
What do you need? I'll do it.
A bad way to. I think it's just being not even being agreeable, but being like easygoing. I think I'm just like, I try to be easygoing because I think that. I like to, and I feel like I try to operate this way in a lot of different ways in my life, but I'm like, I only really want to raise my hand about something if I really feel strongly about it. I don't want to like, you know what I mean? I think that I'm like, I don't want to, especially in a creative setting, I'm like, I don't want to like gum up the works unless it's like, this isn't working for me and like, this doesn't feel authentic for me, which I feel like is kind of what you were saying. And I think that like, I have the most respect on earth for like bands and it's funny because it's so rare these days. Like all of the bands that I think of that I'm about to talk about, I feel like have all gotten back together. But I really love it when a band is just like, we're done. You know what? We did it. We did our 5 records and they're great and we're done and we're never getting back together. Like the Pixies before they reunited, like that vibe. I was like, that was sick. Like, yeah, why get back together?
Didn't necessarily need it either, just to be clear. Plus, as fans of like, we both grew up in like a hardcore scene. Yeah. I don't need any band from that era to get back together. It's never what you want. You know what I mean?
It's almost like how it was a moment in time. TV is or something. Like I feel like British TV shows like 2 seasons, perfect show, we're done.
6 episodes and they shut it down. Yeah.
It's so funny. But yeah, I feel like that doesn't really exist anymore. But it's like, it all kind of like harkens back to like what we're talking about, just trying to like, I feel like just staying authentic is such a rarity these days. And it's so hard to, and I think that that's the most important thing. If you're being creative, it's just to be like, this isn't authentic to me, so I'm going to be done with it. I'm just not
when
done.
You think about like, how are you supposed to be like, and listen, I know Dando went off the ledge here, but like, how are you supposed to be cool like the Lemonheads, but then do Instagram? Like you can't, those two things in my head don't go together, but I don't know how you're successful without doing it either at the same time.
It's so tough. It's something that we're constantly talking about at the label, and just something that I'm talking to artists about all the time. I feel like, a lot. I work with a lot of artists who do Instagram in the sense that there is Instagram happening on their behalf, but they don't engage with Instagram. Like they don't look at Instagram. Yeah. I feel like I have a lot of friends like that, but like artists, I work with artists who do that and don't like. Just like their management runs it, and they, they have posts, but they just don't look at it. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. I would love to not look at it.
Yeah. I don't know. You just have to like, I think you have to like set yourself up and be like, well, I'm making like boundaries today that I'm never going to break. Like, I don't know how else you would do it. You just have to be like ready immediately for that line of thinking, which I could not do. I don't think. Cause I would just say, sure, I'll do it. We'll figure it out.
Fine.
Same. I mean, literally same. Yeah. I would just be like, oh, you need me to do this? Got it. Yeah. I'll totally do it. Yeah. But I think that's another thing. It's just like, it's kind of like just, artistically just kind of like, just being like, these are my limitations. These are my boundaries. This is what I'm going to do. And this is what I'm not going to do. And then we're going to make it work knowing that. I think that's like, it's really important. Like it's kind of like, it's just like that, being authentic.
It's kind of so rare that it would like happen so like slowly and organically to not like, I think that's how it does end up happening, where it's like, oh, I made a couple songs and I made a couple more and some of these worked, and now all of a sudden I'm talking to someone, and it's like it happens just slowly enough that you didn't realize you slipped into making any sort of decision. It just sort of happens, like rather than being like, I'm a person now I have to start thinking of this as a business suddenly. I think that's what's like would be difficult.
Totally. And I'm like the little bit of music that I do play, like I still my band Swearin still gets together and does shows every now and then. And it's a thing where I think the it's it's gotten so fun for me, that band, because I think that we really had a moment like 5 or 6 years ago where I think we just were like, yeah, we're just gonna do this when it makes sense, and we're gonna do it, and it's just gonna be fun. And we're like, Swearin has Instagram. I don't even follow. I don't run the Swearin. I don't follow the Swearin Instagram. I'm like, it's none of my business. One of my bandmates does. I'm just like, that's fine. You know what I mean? But I'm like, yeah, I'm just like I think we really, we all. That band started like 12 years ago. We've all changed so much. It's like we're married, and people are starting families, and people are buying houses, and just like kind of just like starting careers, doing like living lives that have nothing to do with what they were when we started the band. And so I think that the only way for us to do it is just to be like, yeah, just we can't really give a shit, and it just has to like, happen when it happens. And it's been fun. I mean, the flip side is that we hardly do anything, but when we do, it's like, it's fun. It feels like, I don't know, like, what's that movie with like Grown Ups or something? That movie where like all the crews gets together.
Yeah. This is a wild reference, Allison. I love it though. I know exactly.
I've actually never seen that movie, but I'm like that. Like in my head, I'm like, that's what it feels like to do Swearin.
Well, hold on. How do you know the concept of Grown Ups without having seen it? You just saw the trailer and we're like,
I've seen it. Yeah, I'm like, I've seen enough.
I'll pull that whenever I need it. You know what? It is enough. It's not good. But if you like bad movies, it's very good. Like
I love that.
You ever seen Wild Hogs? That's another one where the guys get all back together. Tim Allen, Martin Lawrence.
I've not, but my dad loves that movie. Yeah, I'm like, that's like a perfect like dad movie. But I was thinking about this recently about like the idea of like these like super group movies. Like that's like such a thing, and it's always 4 people. I feel like it's always 4 people. I don't know what that is. Like someone. Yeah, some screenwriter was like, it's got to be a foursome, like it's got to be 4 people. But that's like a whole like subgenre of movies where it really feels like a super group of like, let's get like all these heavy hitters in, but it's 4 people.
Yeah,
Grown Ups might be the first one of those.
It started it off.
Yeah, picked it off.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they knew how groundbreaking that Happy Madison Productions was going to be in when they made Grown Ups.
I don't know. I have a good friend of mine. He doesn't do it anymore, but he did this thing in LA for a few years. I think it was just called Sandler Con. Now I'm going to like mess it up. But my friend Aloy did this like film festival at his house where for 24 hours, he just played Adam Sandler movies and like just mostly invited friends. But it wasn't open to the public because it was at his house, but it was like promoted and it was like a whole thing. And it kind of like the first couple years, I think he did like programming where he just programmed 24 hours of movies. And then it kind of like there was a wheel involved that would get spun. And so there were a couple of times where we're watching the same movie over and you know what I mean? Like over and over. And yeah, it's just like his love of Adam Sandler, I feel like has really resonated with me. It's really beautiful.
It's funny you talk about Adam Sandler. Literally 2-3 podcasts ago, I mentioned to Timothy about Mr. Deeds, and then he had said before his daughter was born that he went through the full Adam Sandler filmography.
See what held up and what didn't.
Yeah.
It's great. 50-50.
Oh, Mr. Deeds is it's absolutely twisted. I can't. When we watched it, my girlfriend and I watched it probably a year or 2 ago, and it is even. It's 10 times wilder than you thought it was.
They didn't say no to any ideas. Like if it got pitched in the writers' room, they were like, "Do it."
Yeah. Oh, you want the water fountain to have Hawaiian Punch? Do it. Yeah, run it.
Do it. Run it.
Love that. No budget. No budget request was denied.
Okay,
I need to rewatch that one. I saw like when it came out, but even like thinking back on that movie. It feels like Winona Ryder is like a weird choice as a co-star for that. But I can't remember though. It holds up though? She does a good job. They have chemistry.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
I think they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love her. She's one of my like all-time faves. But
yeah, she's great. I'm trying to think now, like how it. Do you know what I mean? Like if they had chemistry though or not.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler feels like he almost has chemistry with nobody. Like he has comedic chemistry,
but he has chemistry with everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you're not like ever like, oh, he doesn't have steamy moments. You know what I mean? There's none of that. But it's like you can tell I think they liked each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also a wild
guy.
If you look at her like work, that's also a wild choice too.
Yeah. No, totally. That's what I'm saying. I was like, in hindsight, I'm like, that was a weird choice casting wise, but I don't hate it because I love her.
Mm-hmm.
And I would stay in this part of the conversation forever, and I'll only ask one more thing. Do we know if that was like pre or post Winona Ryder scandal that she did Mr. Deeds?
That's a good question because I'm trying to remember. It's so her career. It's so wild to think about that, and it's also wild to think that like in 2024, if that happened, it would have been like a week later, no one gave a shit. You know what I mean? Like it would have happened, and then nobody would have thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But something about it happening in like I feel like it happened in like 2001 or something, like early 2000s, very late 90s. And I'm like, I feel like she didn't work for a bit. Like it was like it really like followed
all
for a while.
because
And
she
it's
like
such a
nabbed some stuff.
yeah.
What was this? What was the scandal?
She like, she like stole some stuff from a mall.
Yeah. She stole some stuff from a mall.
From a
I might
Claire's?
be making this up, but I want to say that she said that it was like partly to do with research for
You're
a
right.
role
She said she was it was like character acting. She was like staying in character, so she, did this. It does seem like a weak defense, to be fair, but it's also like, who cares? Is this really like that? You shouldn't not work because of that. If every time that I threw something over the scanner a little quick at a Whole Foods, I wasn't allowed to work for like a year, that would be crazy.
No, and I mean it's honestly like to me it really reeks of like late 90s early 2000s misogyny just in general. Like I'm like I feel like if an actor like a male actor did that and like we would like I'm sure Steven Seagal or someone like stole some shit and like no one you know what I mean, like no one cares.
Steven Seagal has done a lot worse things than that.
Literally,
Yeah.
So I'm just like to me like it's very of that time that it would be such a big scandal. But
if Tom Hanks did it, we would be like, it's cute.
It was cute. Yeah, it would have been cute on Tom Hanks, which again,
I kind of think it's cute for Winona Ryder. I think that did the opposite in my book. That made her way cooler.
Same. I was like, fuck yeah. Are you kidding? I'm like, she's like the most famous actress and she's doing like, yeah. I'm like, but it's definitely like a bummer to think about. Do you guys know those like, on like GQ and Vanity Fair do those YouTube pieces where they have actors go back and like talk about like their most famous.
Yeah. Yep.
That's like my favorite content on YouTube. I love stuff like that. And I just watched one with Winona Ryder and it was very endearing. And she doesn't talk about that, but she kind of like basically it went up until like Girl Interrupted and then it goes right to Stranger Things and like kind of goes right into later roles. So I was thinking about that where I was like, oh yeah, there was like it wasn't that big of a gap. She definitely did films like in that period.
I feel like it was Mr. Deeds.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Mr. Deeds would have been right around Girl Interrupted. I love how much we're talking about this. I'm just like, I'm just saying, I can talk about this kind of stuff all day.
When Mr. Deeds came out, it did not get this much press as we've given it in the past 10 minutes.
No, we're really like, everybody who is listening to this is going to go watch Mr. Deeds, myself included.
I think that it makes perfect sense, career trajectory, as we talked about that wise, that Chase and I would be interviewing someone from a band that we really like and just only talking about Mr. Deeds. So this lines up for us pretty perfectly. So I'm glad that you were down and you know the reference point of Mr. Deeds.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing that's funny about me too, is I'm like, anyone who knows me knows how much more I would prefer to talk about movies than music, but
listen, but I
love talking about music too.
We just say this all the time because people like want us to talk about fashion stuff all the time, and you're like, I literally do it as a job. It's all I do all day, and in my free time, which for some reason we've decided is what the podcast, but is just talking about anything else, but if we can get out of it. And actually, I have a topic, and also because I've seen you pick up 2 different drinks, and I wanted to mention that I used to really like. You used to have an Instagram about drinks, right?
Yes.
Loved
It's kind of taken a back seat recently. Like really after, like it kind of came to a screeching halt during the pandemic. But the Instagram it was started by my husband. And it's actually really sweet because you were correct in that I have an iced coffee here and a topo, which is, okay, there's always at least 2 or 3 just off camera.
I love it. I'll actually have 1, but it's only because I got rid of 2 in the meantime. Sure.
Yeah, so my husband, when we started dating, just started to notice this about me. And it started as just like a way to document drinks, but also to really document outfits and like clothing I was wearing. And it's sweet because I think the first one that he ever took, it was like we'd been dating for about 6 months, but it was on the drive from when I was leaving Philadelphia to move to Los Angeles. We did this road trip. And so it kind of documents my whole time in LA. But then it's been kind of on pause for a while. But this conversation, I'm like, maybe we need to bring it back because I like documenting my clothing too. And I think that was like the main reason that we kept it going for so long is it was kind of like like an outfit of the day type of Instagram. But then at the same time, it was just like it kind of encouraged us to try places in town and go get new drinks and just whatever. But it was really the brainchild of my husband Mike, and yeah, it's very sweet. It's like when I go back and look at it, I'm just like, what a nice like little a moment in time or like a couple of years of our like early relationship, but also just like an homage to me, to me and my drinks.
Well, you've touched on a few topics immediately that we need to circle around. And so we're going to come back to drinks because we've created a little like game at the end about drinks that we'd like to play with you.
Right.
But let's start here. What was it like moving from? Well, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, right on.
Then Philadelphia, then LA.
There's a couple stops in between. I was Birmingham, Alabama until I graduated high school. Then I went to the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. And then I went from there to Chattanooga, Tennessee, randomly. I dropped out of college because I kept like skipping school to go on tour. When Katie and I had a band, like a punk band, before we did Swearing in Waxahachie called P.S. Eliot. And I would just like skip school, go on tour. I would have kind of like a come to Jesus with my parents every semester being like, I don't like this. I don't know what I'm doing. I kind of want to drop out, whatever. And then after 2 years at UA, they let me leave, and I moved just kind of out of nowhere, like to Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had some friends there. A friend of mine was like, "There's a room available in my house for $97 a month if you."
No
want
kidding.
Oh my God.
Truly. And I was like, can't argue with that.
Is it still available?
Yeah, but honestly, probably. But yeah, so I moved there. I was there for about 2 years. Then Katie and I moved together to New York City, and lived in New York for a couple of years, and then moved down to Philadelphia and was there for about 5 years, and then moved to Los Angeles. So yeah,
these are it's kind of a wild few places. Like these are very opposite style places. Do you like
100%?
Do you miss Philadelphia, or are you like, I'm just all LA now? Because
I'm all LA.
Philadelphia is crazy. Yeah. Like I like it kind of, but it's
Philly left an imprint on me, I'll say, when I went.
Yeah, it's got a specific vibe. Yeah.
I won't go too hard on my feelings about Philadelphia because I have so many friends still there, and I do love it, and it will always hold like it truly.
Killer music scene. I mean, you included, but killer music scene. I mean, it's got stuff. It's just
totally.
Yeah.
It's got stuff, and it's got. I mean, the music scene there and the kind of music history there is kind of unmatched. It's just like it's wild, like. Even like doing my job, like how many artists that I talk to that are in Philly, like I'm there all the time for work. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's this very centrally located East Coast city. It's very affordable compared to all of the cities around it. You can get to New York in 2 hours. You can get to DC in 3 hours. You can get to, Pittsburgh really quickly. You can get to the Midwest. You're kind of like already on the way there, like Boston, like all those cities are so close. Like you can get to like, the triangle, like North Carolina in like 6 hours. Like it's really not, it's so centrally located for if you're doing music, and it's just like so affordable. So many of my friends who I came up with playing music, like really didn't have to work a ton like of day jobs because you could just doing music, you could really like supplement. And I don't know, it like makes a lot of sense that it's got such a thriving like art and music scene, and just like culturally it's such an important city in America. And so it just like, it totally makes sense. It was a lovely time in my life when I was there. But I kind of like LA. I had LA dreams for a long time. Just like when I was a teenager, I had New York dreams for a long time. I think like I always knew that I wanted to go to New York. And I think I would have stayed in New York only when Swearin' started. 3 of us were in New York and our drummer was in Philly, and our drummer was just absolutely refused to move to New York. He was like, there's no way, I'm not doing it. Like, Philly's where it's at. And we all wanted to be in the same place. And we loved Philly and had a lot of friends there. So we were like, all right, I guess we're all like loading up and moving to Philly so we can all be together and kind of like just, be practicing more and recording more. And so that's kind of what took me to Philly, was just like this, my dear friend, Jeff Bolt, who is the drummer of Swearin', who is very stubborn. And like,
Stupid Bag Records, right?
Yeah, that's him. Wow. Shout out Stupid Bag. Love it. That's him. Yeah, he was just like, hell no, I'm not going to New York. You guys have to come here. So
Yeah.
that's what took me to
That's what
Philly.
you did.
I like that energy. I align with that.
That's Chase all day. What about Alabama? Do you have like, is that like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been there. I mean, I know a little bit about it culturally, but I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like, what's it like growing up there?
Well, I mean, it was a lovely place to grow up in so many ways. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my family's all there.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely like feel very Southern, like as far as just like the way I grew up, like
Yeah.
a lot of yes ma'am, no ma'am, like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that is still like in me, I would say. But we also, Katie and I grew up in Birmingham, so it's like a pretty big city. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really identify as like a city person, and I think like it's because I
Yeah.
grew up in the suburbs, but I grew up like going to downtown Birmingham, going to
Sure.
shows, like,
Yeah.
just kind of like going to thrift stores down there, going to eat down there, just really like being in, in this small but active city. But yeah, I mean, I knew, like I said, I knew from the time I was like 16 that I was like, I want to
Mm-hmm.
go. Like I'm like, I don't, this isn't for me. I don't, I miss the South, and I actually think about it a lot. And I'm like, at some point I would like to live in the South again. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I would want to live. I don't know if I would go to Birmingham again, just because I'm like, there's other places I maybe would rather live. But it's a great city. And I definitely have a lot of love for it.
If not Birmingham in the South, is there one or two other cities that
Yeah,
are
you've been
kind of top of
around.
mind? You know, like
Totally. I mean, my one of my favorite cities, that's where I actually got married here, is Memphis. I love
hmm,
Memphis, Tennessee so much. And I think
Extremely
that
underrated for that area. Like I feel like it gets a bad
extremely
rap.
underrated.
Yeah.
Yes. It's just like it's such a great city. Talk about like an important city in America.
Yeah.
Like just like culturally and just like historically, it's just like one of the most important cities in America. And it's really small, and it's kind of in a lot of ways feels like kind of untouched. Like there's just so much
hmm,
like there's so much there that just feels like it's been there forever. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I like that a lot about it, and it's just it's pretty small. It's like, it's just like everybody's super friendly there. I've always had a lot of fun there, and we grew up going there on vacation a lot as
Oh,
kids.
cool.
There's this famous hotel there called the Peabody, that has these ducks. I don't know if you know about the
Yeah.
Peabody
Yeah.
ducks.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
they take the
It's
elevator.
cool.
It's really cool. But
It'd be sick if you
we would
live at
go
the
there.
Peabody Hotel, actually.
Totally. And so when my husband and I got married during the pandemic, and we had a wedding planned out here, but obviously had to cancel plans, and we really wanted to keep the date, which was like June of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like kind of scratching our heads about like what's a way that we could do this safely and do it like in a way that maybe our parents could come, but that's it. And we'll just like, and we had just been in Memphis for Katie's and my birthday, which I think it was like I don't remember, like 31st or 32nd birthday. And Katie and I and our partners had been in Memphis and just like hanging out. And anyway, we went to Sun Studios, like the
Yeah.
recording studio. And we made some friends with one of the engineers there, and we just hit him up and we're like, hey, if we like wanted to do a really small wedding in the live room
Oh,
here,
whoa.
could that happen? And they were like, yeah, you can have, no more than 10 people. Like everybody has to have their temperature checked and like
Mm-hmm.
test and all that. And we were like, cool. And they just made us pay for studio time. So I think we paid like $400
oh
for two
sick,
Hell
hours
yeah.
there. And it was awesome. And so it was just us and a photographer, our families and a photographer and and some recording engineers to help us like, with music cues. But
Oh, that's
that was it.
cool.
It was super, I mean, it was so mellow. I mean, it was just like, I think we had chairs in there for people to sit, but it was just like, it was just us. And it was really fun.
Damn, that's cool. Well, how?
So it's just, so for that reason too, it's like special to me. Like we kind of that's where we got married. It's like a place that Mike and I both really love. And other than that, I love North Carolina. I could really see
Mhm.
myself in North Carolina
Yeah.
too. But yeah, I love the South. I mean, it's just like it's home.
I get it. It's like it's got there's a I grew up going to South Carolina a lot and then spent time in Kentucky. When I was in college, we'd go there and hang out a lot. Now, any like area that's got any sort of southern tinged anything is just it's nice. It's warmer, it's nicer, especially as you get older. It's like, man, I like that energy now. You know what I mean?
hmm,
Maybe it was not maybe wouldn't have wanted to live there when I was young, but now it's like, oh man, this is I miss that kind of thing a little bit.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
I relate to that a lot. I think there's something about that when you get a little older and you're like, well, it's nice when people are just like nice to each other. And I
Yeah,
know, I mean,
yeah.
people are nice to each other everywhere. I really feel that here too. Like, like just walking around my neighborhood, I'm like, yeah, I like know my neighbors and like say hi to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's like
yeah,
a nice feeling. But when you're young and you're like early 20s and stuff, I would always be like,
yeah,
who's, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to talk to anybody, but
yeah. So you like LA now though? It feels like
yeah.
home now.
It does. I love it here. You know, I think that again, like I wanted to come out here like for a long time before I did. And I've been here 7 years in October and it's great. I live in Eagle Rock. I've been in the same
Yeah,
place the whole time I've lived here too, which is so different. In Philly, I was moving like every
sure.
6 months.
Yeah.
You know, I was constantly changing houses. And yeah, I just feel like I really have like a home here. And it's
Hmm.
really nice. Yeah.
What's the vibe shift been? Are you into like hiking and like what do you do now? What do you do different now that you couldn't do before?
It's so funny.
Because
Because like
I moved here from Chicago. We're in Boulder, so
okay, yeah, yeah.
you know it's like a small hippie town. It's very like outdoors oriented, and
Yeah.
like I grew up in Indiana, lived in Chicago for a long time. A lot of that stuff, outdoor stuff, is not really. It's not a thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone
Or maybe,
ski
yeah,
in
not
my life.
celebrated like it is.
Yeah,
here,
it's
you
just
know?
like, you know, you have to really go out of your way to try to do any of that stuff there. So when I came out here, I'm like, ugh, it's not really me, but I'll figure it out, you know. And then now I'm like super into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Honestly, I'm jealous of that. I feel like I'm not I feel like you have to be into it to a certain extent. Like it's so
sure. Yeah,
social. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
hmm,
here where and I'm sure it is there too, where it's
yeah,
like you know, like I've got plans with a friend on Sunday. We're like, yeah, we're just gonna go walk the reservoir, you know, or we're
yeah, yeah,
gonna
yeah,
like what you know, hike in Griffith Park or something like that. Like I'll do stuff like that. I'm very active too. Like I'm like you know, like I work out a lot and I like that stuff, but I like to do it inside. I'm definitely like more of an indoors girl, which is a funny thing being out here where it does feel it feels outdoors oriented. But I don't know what it is that's different. I think like a lot of it is kind of sort of compounded with like not touring anymore. I think like
sure.
me moving here, like it happened right around the same time as like I stopped touring. And so I think a lot of the habits that I developed are kind of like because of both of those things, you know, like where I think
Yeah,
just like like this is the house that I live in now. Like I'd always in Philly, it was just like I was touring all the time when I was living in like punk houses. And I was like, I never
yeah,
really had like a space that I was like, oh, I'm gonna
yeah.
like buy nice furniture and I'm gonna like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna have like stuff that I really love and have a space that I really want to be in. I didn't really have that before I moved here. And a big reason I have it now is because I think I just like slowed down touring and you know, like I always lived with roommates before and like here you know, Mike and I, it's just us and I
Yeah.
don't know, all of those things feel like they are connected to getting older and to like stopping touring as well.
LA
In
is like a
LA,
made. It's like it's conducive to that. You know what I mean? Whereas like New York
so conducive to
I
that.
know people do, but it's not as. It doesn't feel like as inviting to be like, all right, this is a place I would settle down or could like, you know, really set up a house or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You just kind of feel like, oh, I'm doing this for now because I'm gonna have to move here. You know what I mean? It's like you're never really settled.
Totally. But there's also like this thing on the East Coast that I was just talking to somebody about this recently about how like socially and culturally there's like this thing on the East Coast where everything just kind of like happens. Like it's very
Mm,
spontaneous and you like
yeah,
bump into people and you go, you know, you're going out a lot. There's a lot like the culture, I think, really like pushes you towards like going out. Whereas I
yeah,
feel like here it's more like staying in and you have to, I think it's because everybody's main mode of transportation is driving. So I think it's
Hmm.
like every social event that you attend has to be really intentional. And like, you know, I think like the like drinking culture plays into it as well. But it's just like the fact that you like have to, there's a lot of intentionality and therefore there's a lot of alone time, which
yeah,
I love. Like
yeah.
I love being alone. So I'm like it's nice for me to just really be able to recharge and be alone. And then like when I want to go do something, like I'm gonna do it, but it's like very
It's
intentional.
like yeah,
Does
it's
that make sense?
intentional. It's not just like
Yeah.
it's like in Chicago. It'd be like I would hit like 3 places on my way home, and then if something happened from there, you go do more stuff. But like it doesn't have to. Like you're right. It's just so like whatever's going on's going on, and that's nice. And I also like I miss the anonymity of a city a little bit, like in that like you could go do things and I'd be around a bunch of people, but no one was looking at me, bothering me, noticing me in anything. Like you go to the grocery store, I don't see anybody I know. Here, because it's like a smaller town, like that happens a lot. You'll see
Hmm.
people that you know and you're like, oh, I gotta do like a stop and chat now. It's like a whole thing. But other than that, I feel what you're saying. I love that like you go home and then you go to a thing and do the thing. You know what I mean? And like you have time in
Totally.
between them to mentally change your mind and things like this. You know what I mean? Whereas like in a city, it's you don't have time to do that. You got to just keep rolling with it. Now I don't have the
Totally.
energy anymore.
I don't have the energy anymore. No, I'm the exact same. There's also this funny element to it as well. Katie and I've talked about this a lot because Katie, my sister, lives in Kansas City, and I think that we talked about like I think that because we grew up in Alabama and we Katie and I have always both like been very into fashion, have had like very like wildly changing senses of style over the years, and there's this element when we were younger when we would like go out and we would be like people are looking at us like we're freaks and we're kind of into it, like there's something about that we're kind of into that, like just like being like we're like we look wild and people are looking at us like we look wild because we're like in Target in Birmingham, Alabama in the year 2006. But like being here, I'm like I'm like whatever, I don't care what anybody thinks. But like being in KC or being in like other smaller cities, I'm like, oh yeah, like I stand out a lot because I'm like wearing a wacky outfit, whereas like in LA no one looks twice, you know. And I think that the older I get, the more I'm kind of like I also kind of like the anonymity, and I just like just being like whatever, I'm just like going to the grocery store and you know whatever and not thinking about it. And but as a young person, I think like being in the small city and sort of dealing with that, I was like, well, like being in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, living with all sorority girls and like wearing like who knows what. I was just like, I kind of liked that, that like sort of dichotomy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That like big fish, little pond, little fish, you know, like that whole switch up. I do think about that a lot because there is some times where it's like, you know, if you're in a big city, you got to really work to like know people and be noticed in any sort of way, whether it's work or whatever it is. Whereas like in a smaller town, it's like, even just being from like if I'm like I moved here from Chicago, that'll be like a big enough deal to them that it's like it's something. There's a niceness of going back home like in the Midwest, and I talk to my friends there, and then they think everything I'm doing is so interesting, and it's like, well, it's a nice reminder that like what I'm doing is like cool or interesting, rather than like when you're sitting in it all the time and you're like, oh, I kind of forget that this. I just look at it, everything. You can kind of turn anything into a pain in the ass if you sit in it too long. You know what I mean? So I kind of I like the mix up. I like going back home for that reason of like, oh, I feel, you know,
it makes you feel grateful for here. Like I left. I'm from Cleveland, and I'll go home and people are like, oh, where you living now? You still living down in Kent? And it's like, no, I live in Colorado. What the hell are you doing out there?
It's amazing.
It's like,
I love that. I know. I love that too, and I agree. I think that I could see myself because I've done it. I mean, I've lived in like a really really small towns. I've lived in the biggest cities ever. And I'm like, I think I really loved every one of them. And I kind of feel like I could see myself, in any mix of combos of other places at some point. I think I like try to stay really open, but that said, I love LA. My husband loves LA and is like, we're never leaving. So I think I'm here for a while for sure.
You know, if ever, I've been at Canoe Club for 7.5 years. Timbo opened it. I'm here for the long haul. But if ever Colorado is not the place, I'm endlessly fascinated with LA. I've never seen it.
I know if I go there, I'm never going to leave. Like it'll be like because I've visited a lot, and it's like, it's one of those things that's like, oh, I love it here. I love that everyone like is into movies, and I know that's like the only other thing I'm interested in. There's cool music, there's cool everything, but you can also, it's not like New York or whatever. You don't have to like sit in it all the time. I can also go be away from that. And
it's the perfect
whenever
comment.
I want to. It's perfect.
Geographically, are there areas of how do I say this? Where is the threshold to where traffic is not the bane of your existence? Like, is it 45 minutes outside of the city? Is it an hour and a half? What's
the
it
city's
look
too
like?
all over the place, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like, kind of honestly, I hate to be the bearer of the bad news, but
he's never going out.
And actually, the further you get out, I think it sometimes even gets worse. Especially where I live. Like, we've had this happen so many times because we're insane and we do like crazy road trips all the time where we're like, oh, it's time to go home for Christmas. We're going to drive to Alabama just so we can bring our dog with us. But Mike and I, it took us a minute to kind of like get it dialed in about like when the right time to leave is. And the answer is 5 a.m. That's the only time that you can leave and not sit in traffic. Because if you leave going east, it's just like, if you leave like in the evening or anything, I'm like, you're going to sit in like 4 hours of traffic. Like it just gets, it's so bad in that zone. And it's just kind of bad everywhere. But like I mostly work from home. I'm in the office that I work in like a couple days a week, and like getting there takes 20 minutes. There's hardly ever any traffic. I love going to the West Side and just like to shop I just love being over there. And so like on weekends and stuff, I'll drive out, but I'm just like, you just like prepare yourself, you know?
It's a known quantity.
you're like, I'm gonna sit in traffic for like probably 30 to 45 minutes, and that's fine. And I'm just gonna accept that, and I'm gonna have
Yeah.
a plan of attack when I get there, and that's just it. Like it's rare that it's like shit. Like the only time that happens is if I'm like for some reason I'm in Hollywood and I'm trying to get home and there's a show at Hollywood Bowl. I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
fuck. I just like go straight into it, and then you start to notice more and more cars, and you're like I'm like on my phone, like what's happening at the bowl? What's happening at the bowl? Like something.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time that it happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it so many times, and you'd think I would like have another route planned, but I never do.
Okay. Forget it. Talk to us about clothes, Lo. You said you were super into like fashion stuff. Do you have like designers you love and things, or like what? Or is it? You've mentioned vintage. Is that where your main interest is, or what are you into?
I would say like mainly, yeah, I've always been into vintage. That's been like a huge part of my style and just kind of like honestly, it almost feels a little bit like a sport at this point. Like
Yeah.
I love like the sport of going thrifting and going vintage shopping, and that's really been present in my life since I was a kid. My
Mm-hmm.
grandmother's really into
Cool.
thrifting and kind of got us into it when we were really young. And so like all through high school and early college, I was like constantly thrifting, and that was really like my main interest. But I've always had like an interest in some designer fashion too, but more like as I get older, it's more kind of like sustainable designers, indie designers, like that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But I don't know if I'm trying to think of like designers that I really, really, I mean, there's so many that I wouldn't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's always been like style has always been a huge part of just maybe just the crux of my identity. It's always been
Yeah.
like a hugely important part of who I am. So I think about it all the time. I try to not leave the house in something that I don't feel like if I ran into someone, would this be,
It'd be cool. Yeah.
acceptable to me? Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Where do you get like obviously I feel like you could get it from a lot of different places living in LA, having toured all the time, but like where do you get like style inspiration from? Or do you feel like it's been steadfast throughout the years? Like like this is my style, this is what I'm always going for? Or are you like into changing it up all the time?
It changes, but it's all in the same world, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Like I think that my inspiration points definitely change a lot. I think like if we're talking about the Allison is parched Instagram, I think like in those
Yeah.
the days that like really started, I think I was very very influenced by the 1960s, by like mod
Mm-hmm.
culture, by even like some French new wave stuff. Like I think that was like the very much the look I had. Like my hair was really which up until like recently, like I typically like if anyone was going to make like an avatar of me and like just to represent me like
Mm-hmm.
for my whole like adult life, I think I would probably have short hair. Like I mostly am like a short hair person. I'm growing it
Mm-hmm.
out right now, but I had like really short hair and like winged eye makeup and like a lot
Oh
of kind of
yeah.
bright colors and like really like vintagey, a lot of like short skirts and stuff like that. I was really into wore Keds like that era. I was in Keds nonstop. That was like the
Yeah.
only shoes that I wore. But it changes. I mean, like I've had moments where I feel like I'm really into the 1970s. Right now I'm very much in a moment where I'm like really into the 1930s and like I'm very in a very like a Katharine Hepburn, like, got the side part,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that vibe. I think that that's really, but it's always like just kind of like like a classic vintage American look that is then a little bit punk, if that makes sense. Like I'm like, because I've got
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
tattoos and
yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of like I'm always like gonna look alt. But I feel like I like for my clothing to always feel like classic. I'm
Yeah.
really funny about like if I'm really funny about shoes. I feel like especially like a lot of modern shoes. I just like I'm like like I need my shoe to look like something that I could have bought 30 years ago, 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Like
I think
does that
that's
make
actually
sense?
a good true north, to be honest with you, because I think that
Yeah.
that is an easy way where things change. Like if wearing like a shoe that could have existed at another time or a shoe that could only exist now, those are two vastly different styles, even if it's the same thing both ways.
100%. It's funny. I've talked to my sister about this a little bit because I feel like that's like a big difference between the two of us. Katie's very, very into like a comfort shoe, and it's a big part of her style. And for me, I feel like I own them. I got three pairs of Hokas in here, like I wear them to work out and to walk in and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But I'm like, but I don't, that's not like a part of the look for me. It's definitely like if I'm leaving the house, I'm in like a loafer, a classic sneaker, a ballet flat, something like that,
Yep.
boots, like, clogs. I've got a lot of shoes like that, but I'm like, I think that that's like definitely a big one of, I don't have a lot of like rules, but that's like one of the rules is that the shoe needs to feel classic.
Sure.
Um, And then otherwise, yeah, I feel, I don't know, like it's all kind of in the same world, but it's ever shifting and it is all kind of like vintage inspired or vintage, I would say. And I think I've started to, in the last like 5, 6 years, especially, I feel like I've started to get really, really conscientious of like sustainability and like really staying away from fast fashion, really staying away from anything that feels like, bad for the, yeah.
It's giving very like Eric Romer, you know him, the director.
Yeah.
It feels like where it's like 60s, but it's not happening in the 60s, and so it's kind of edgy. Like that's sort of the energy. It's very cool. What do you like? Has this bled over into home decor?
Totally. My husband is a designer and art director, and so he dabbles in interiors too. So he is so it's definitely, I feel like he's really influenced me in a lot of ways with that stuff. But it definitely has translated over into our home. We're both very, very into the way that our house is decorated. And yeah, it's been fun. I think that's the thing. Like, even I was kind of talking about that a little bit, maybe not saying it exactly, but like when I lived in Philly, I didn't really have that. And our house has been like kind of like this huge project. Like we've just put a lot of thought into the way that it looks, and it does change, and just like our tastes change. I mean, we had a whole thing like during the pandemic where we had this like our couch in our living room for so long was this like Modernica like day bed, and it was beautiful and it was like really well made, but it was, as soon as the pandemic hit, we were like, oh, this isn't for sitting, like this isn't for hanging out on. And so we like very quickly were like, what is like a couch that feels comfortable but like stylish, and like we kind of were in our heads, we're not like sectional couch people, but then we found like one that worked, and then we were like, okay, then now we're obsessed with it and we're on it all the time.
You don't want to be a sectional couch person, but the reality is it's so much better. You know what I mean?
So much better. Yeah. Like we kind of just had a moment during COVID where we were like, we want to be on the couch and like laying down, and like we will touch hands or touch each other, but we like, it'd be cool if we had the option
your own areas, apart.
And we got a friend of ours who's like does some interior decoration recommended that brand Sixpenny, and so we got a Sixpenny. You guys are familiar with those, but never looked back. It's the best, one of the best purchases we've ever made in our whole lives.
I've had to break up with a lot of chairs throughout my life. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, these look cool, but I got they keep going into weird areas. I'm never sitting in them because they're not comfortable. I just like looking at them. And I don't have the kind of space to just have chairs lying around all over the place, you know?
Yeah, so that's hard too. Like getting rid of stuff. The older you get, like getting rid of stuff, you're just like, I don't know, like, like even like the day bed I was talking about, I'm like, we moved that to another room because we couldn't just get rid of it. So it's hard, you just, you want to hang on to that stuff.
Yeah, I get it.
Here, furniture's tough because it's also like, it's expensive. So like to experiment is tough.
Well, it's big. It's like, you can't just like put it in the trash can when you're done. There's no, you know what I mean? It's not like, there's nothing, you got a whole deal. I call a guy. It's like a whole thing.
I know. And I'm so not one of those, like, I'm really bad about returning things. Like if I like returning things or like flipping things, like I'm so bad at it. I'm bad at mail and the post office, like all that stuff. I'm like, I'm so bad at anything like that requires like I just move on.
Yep.
And I'm always so envious of my friends who are like, yeah, I'm gonna buy this piece of furniture, and if it doesn't work out, I'll just sell it. I'm like, God, like that seems like that's so smart. That's such a great idea. I'll never do that. You know what I mean? Like I'll just either like give it to someone or like whatever, or find a place for it in my house. But
100%.
I think, that makes me like, I don't know. I really I have to think about it like fully and be like, this is definitely the thing before I.
Yep. If I buy something, it's either mine and I will love it, and if I hate it, it'll still be mine until I give it to somebody. So that goes for clothes, whatever.
Yeah, it just goes into the room in the house that's for the leftovers
until I can't take it anymore, and then I bring it here and I give it to the guys.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. I wish I wasn't, but I am. That's how I am.
All right, we saved this for the end, so let's go back to drinks a minute. So what we want in a dream world is top 3, but I've created categories of different drinks because we do this, we talk about this a lot, he and I. So I'm interested to get what I believe is a professional's take now.
Okay, great.
Okay, top 3s in the sparkling water category. If you don't like the category, dump it too. We're fine. We'll dump it.
I love sparkling water, so I will definitely give you that. Let me think on this though, because I take this one very seriously.
Samesies.
Listen, do you want to line up brands first and then go down by the flavors? Does that help you categorize it?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I actually prefer just like a pure sparkling water. Like I'll do a flavor. So I'm just going to go based on just like, this is just based on like the bubble, the texture, like
we're ranking planes.
Right on. Yeah.
Great.
I feel like I'm going to catch some flack for this one, but let's see. So I think that my number 3 choice would be Topo Chico, which is what I'm drinking right now. I love Topo Chico. I love the aesthetic of Topo Chico. The reason it wouldn't go higher on the list is because it's really bubbly, which I love tasting it, but it actually kind of causes it can cause some like stomach weirdness, some acid
reflux. Yep. I can't do it because of that. It's good, but it's a lot.
It's a lot. That just happened to me for the first time. I bought a 12 pack and I was just like throwing them back and I was just like, why do I have heartburn? And I'm like, oh, it's Topo Chico. So that would be number 3. Number 2, I think I would just go like plain LaCroix. I think
LaCroix Pure.
Yeah, LaCroix Pure. Like I'm into that. I'm like, you can get it everywhere. The bubble texture is really nice.
Yep.
I'm into that one. Number 1, honestly, is the generic brand from Vons / Kroger, which is just like, I don't even remember what it's, I think it's called Refreshe. But it's just like a plain, it's really cheap, but it's like it's just a little bit, the texture is a little nicer than a LaCroix. And it's like, they sell it in like, this is very extremely American of me, but I'm like, you can get it in like a 24 pack, which I love. I love just like not having to lug a bunch of 8 packs around. And I'm let me get a 24 pack of just like the generic brand, like Refreshe from Vons / Kroger, whatever you got in your area. Yeah. That'd be my number 1.
We're from Kroger country, so we get it.
There you go. I'm sure they've got Refreshe or something like that. And there are some like generic brands that I hate. I really don't like the generic brand from Whole Foods. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I have a bonus one that I just have to mention. Please. It's so hard to find that it's like, that's why I didn't think of it. My actual like number 1 bonus, like asterisk, is Rambler. I don't know if you guys have Rambler.
Right.
That's really
Rambler's good.
Rambler's
it's a little more expensive, but when you said this, I was like, you know what? I wonder if she's going to say Rambler. I could see her being a woman of taste.
100%. I actually think we could scooch those and Rambler would be number 1. It's just harder to find. You can. The what made me think of it is Whole Foods because I didn't have it at Whole Foods. But that can, it's just beautiful.
I'm with you.
What's the vessel? You like a can over a bottle or anything? You think?
For sparkling water, yes, I would pick can.
I think you're right.
Hey, let me ask you something. You got a can crusher?
We don't have a can crusher. Mike likes me to step on them to crush them. So I do that. We need a can crusher though. I had one at my parents' lake house growing up. They had a can crusher.
That's exactly where a can crusher is at, as a parents' lake house. That's where they existed and they stopped living after those houses didn't ever go on the market.
I know. I'm like, we need to bring them back. We need to get a can crusher.
I had like an $11 one from Amazon in the old house we lived in, and we haven't purchased one for this house. And I will say it crushed 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 cans and it was really nice it really made taking out the recycling like a fun thing because you could just take out a ton all at once. I could step on that, I suppose, as well, but there was something about
it's just like an activity that's fun to do.
It was good.
Totally. Yeah, it is fun.
Have you ever had a Purely Sedona?
I have had a Purely Sedona, and I do like Purely Sedona. The bottle is really nice.
Bottle's nice. I really like the bubbles on that because they seem smaller than other bubbles to me, and I like
Which I do like a Pellegrino or something like that.
Yeah, that's in the same category. Yeah,
we had a bunch of Pellegrino in the office recently, and I was just like loving it because it's nice. It kind of reminds me of being in Europe on tour or something, having like a softer bubble.
Pellegrino though, that has to be it's got to be in the glass or toss it. If it's in the plastic, I'm not interested in it.
Same. I don't sparkling water in a plastic bottle is kind of a no-go for me.
Throw it out. It's pointless.
Yeah.
What about last one? I think it's Mountain Valley, the tall green glass bottles from Whole Foods.
I never get
that's a restaurant one.
Totally. I never get through them quickly enough before they go flat. That's my one issue with them.
Fair.
But I love those bottles, and I've kept them and used them for other things too. Like, just it's a good size, But yeah, like if I'm in a restaurant sharing sparkling water with someone, that's great.
Yeah.
Let's say, how do you feel about this? Is a separate thing, but like, let's say it does go flat. sometimes that's kind of good too for some reason.
I'll keep drinking it.
About?
Yeah, I'll get through it for sure.
It's like a separate thing. Like you wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, it's not going to sparkle, but it still hits.
Oh, totally. I mean, now that we're talking about this too, I'm thinking, because I'm going to contradict myself and say the only time that I like sparkling water in a plastic bottle is if I'm in New York City and I get a Canada Dry seltzer from like a bodega that's like ice cold. That is really great. The like really tall bottle. That's good. Those are super bubbly. It's really nice.
Okay, next one. Juice category.
Okay.
Now, let me lay some guidelines. You can hit us with your favorite juice.
We didn't talk about guidelines ahead of time, just so you know.
You can hit us from, say, your local juice spot. For instance, there's a spot down the street. They do a good juice. If you want to talk to us about that.
If you want to be a healthy juice, we can go that
healthy
route.
Juice, Ocean Spray.
You can toss a smoothie.
We can toss
it
all. We can talk all juice.
Okay. I'm going to go kind of more like juice spot vibes. And I'll say number 3, there is a place in Los Angeles that I love called the Punch Bowl. It's in Los Feliz. They have it's more of a shake, but it's like a smoothie called the Rita Hayworth, and it's like it's like all like different kinds of like parts of the coconut and then strawberry and like some rose water. Absolutely delicious. If I'm ever over there, I always get one. It's just like one of those big like LA smoothie treats. So that would be number 3. Number 2, anytime I can get watermelon juice, I'm like a big melon person. And so anytime I can just do like pure watermelon juice, I'm like so excited. And like, that's definitely a favorite. And then number 1, it's like boring, but just like a really, really good like green juice, like kale smoothie, green juice.
I'm with you.
I make that at home. I have like my recipe that I make at home and I do it all the time. And that's like my very favorite. And it's just half a banana, about a handful of frozen pineapple, a handful of kale, and coconut water, and that's it. And it's so good. That's like
it's kind of simplified, like less green than it normally is, but that sounds better.
Totally. I sometimes will do spinach. It's like, I mean, I like it because I want it to be sweet. I want it to be like a treat. And I also do that partly because I'm like, I try to get my husband to drink it, and I'm like, he's not going to drink this if it tastes like kale. So I'm like trying to like hide it. I'll throw, if I have fresh mint at home, I'll throw some mint in it. Like but it's a really nice treat. I've gotten into the habit, if I ever have like bands staying with me, I'm like, everybody's getting a kale smoothie. You guys all look like smoothie. We're making a round of kale smoothies.
Everyone that's ever been on tour needs a smoothie.
Everyone needs a kale smoothie on tour, for sure.
Okay. Talk to us about coffee drinks. This can be anything.
Okay. I'm like, I won't go, coffee, this is the one where I'm like, I could go so hard on this. So I'll go kind of simple instead. Which is really just like the 3 coffee things that I ever want are like, I'm like, being in LA too, I'm like such an iced coffee person. So I drink a lot of cold brew. I'm like, and I'm drinking, that's what I'm drinking right now. Get it home. I go out and get it, whatever. But I'm like, so cold brew would definitely be number 1. I'm like just constantly on a cold brew kick. And
how do you take it? Is it just
with just a little bit of milk? Typically, just like regular milk.
Regular milk.
Yeah, just a splash of whole milk or half and half. I like non-dairy milk a lot, and I use it pretty much exclusively in other ways, like if cereal, cooking. Like I'm like a non-dairy milk gal. But in coffee, I'm like I've struggled to blend it well. Just with like regular coffee or cold brew.
Yeah, it's like only oat milk works, and it's like the seed oils and all that bullshit. And it's,
I know. I'm not a big. I don't love oat milk. I'm like more of an almond milk person.
Samesies.
But the almond milk and coffee, throw it. I don't want it in there. It doesn't do anything. You might as well just drink it separately as like a separate beverage.
A little one.
Because that's how it is in the glass anyway. So what's it matter?
I know. I did Whole30 last year, which was about, we could have done a whole podcast with me talking about Whole30. But
I'm doing basically an adjusted version of it right now, just for fun. Like I want to try to like barely cook things and just only it's a hard though. I think it's hard. I think it's because your body loves bullshit.
Yeah,
it loves bullshit.
Not just the taste. I think it's like it feels like giving up cigarettes.
100%. It was really hard, but I really loved it. I feel like it's done a lot of cool things for me. One of them is that I hardly touch processed sugar anymore, which is great. And I feel like they did it in October, and since then I'm like, I have it every now and then, but I'm like, my processed sugar like consumption has gone down significantly, and I feel better for it. But But yeah, you can't have oat milk on whole, you can't have any dairy and you can't have oat milk on Whole30. So I got into almond milk then and now I make it at home and I love it. But we don't really do it in coffee. So yeah, so I do a cold brew with like regular milk. And then my number two would honestly just be like a brewed coffee with whole milk. I'm just like I keep it pretty simple. And then number three, if I'm gonna do something fun, it's not even that fun, but it's like I'm gonna do like an oat cappuccino, I think.
Okay.
Or cortado. But like, yeah, if I'm getting like
I love a cortado too.
I love cortado.
That's like an afternoon coffee for me. That's like a treat coffee.
Well, and you typically get them in what, 4 or 6 ounces? There's a spot down the street that does a little cappuccino. Yeah. I love that. It's nice. It's like you said, it's kind of a treat. It's a fun thing. I'm a black coffee through and through. But if I'm out and about at maybe a nice coffee shop or something, maybe you get a little one too. And it only lasts you 15, 12 minutes or so. But that's all you need. It's just a little treat. You feel good.
What do you like? When you're saying cold coffee, also, what is do you like the nitro? Do you like it just regular? Do you like Americano? What's the dream version?
I like a regs cold brew. I'm actually not into nitro and
kind of sucks.
I don't like the flavor of it. Yeah, I'm not into nitro. I'm not into I mean, I'll do an iced Americano, and it's in some places where I'm like, there's a coffee place that just opened in Eagle Rock that like kind of only does espresso, and so I'll get an iced Americano there, and it's really nice. Sometimes you go somewhere and you're like, you kind of vibe it and you're like, this place just feels like it's going to have like a really burnt, like cold brew. So
yeah. You can't go to like a regular coffee shop and get an iced Americano. But if you're at a nice place, the type of place.
That does espresso typically,
Then it's like, throw it in because it almost makes it thinner tasting. And I like that.
For sure.
I
love when I'm out. Totally. I love when I'm out with someone getting coffee and they get an Americano or an iced Americano. Like I aspire to be that kind of a person because I'm like, there's something kind of classy about that.
I know what you're saying.
Actually, I'll have an Americano instead of a coffee. And I like touring in Europe and stuff. Like, I feel like that's all you're drinking for a month. If you're over there, it's just like an Americano or an iced Americano. Typically just a regular one. They don't really love ice a lot of the time. But but yeah, so I think that honestly, I keep it really simple. It's just like cold brew, brewed coffee, and then like I'll do a cappuccino or cortado.
Would you ever rock with just a straight up espresso?
Yeah, for sure. And I do that like if I'm out at dinner and I have to go to a show after or something, like I'm gonna get a shot of espresso.
Fuck yeah.
Like a martini or like an alcoholic beverage. I'm like, like after that I'll just have a quick shot of espresso and then
Again, it's such a fun little treat. My girlfriend worked in specialty coffee for like years and years. We were like, all right, we're gonna get a little espresso machine. So we got the little Breville guy and we got a separate, not the one that has the grinder in it. We got a separate one. And long story short, I thought I invented this. I do an espresso shot and then do like 2 seconds of hot water. So it's just the smallest amount of water you can add. It's not necessarily a short Americano, I was told is what it's called. I thought I invented it, but that's such a treat.
That's such a treat. That's another thing. I'm like, I really aspire to be a person. I told Mike this recently because he was like, we were like somewhere like a home goods store or something and like looking at espresso machines and there was a bunch of really nice ones. And I was like, I would love in like 10 years to be a person who I don't drink brewed coffee. I get rid of my like brewed coffee maker and I just do espresso and I'm just an espresso drinker. But we'll see. I'm not ready for it yet, but one of these days.
Hey, when you're ready to get that Breville, you just bang my line. I'll show you which one.
I would love that. I've heard the Breville one is like that's the one that's like the best intro.
It's a workhorse. I usually my first moments of being awake in the morning are when I hear my girlfriend kick it on because it's on like the other wall of our bedroom, and it gets use from her, me every single day, twice a day, plus multiple uses for tea at night or whatever, and it is still humming along. I can't say enough good things about this thing. And comparatively to like a La Marzocco you'd get for your house or something, you're in for at least $5,000-$6,000. Not even considering the grinder. So
I know you gotta like that to me. I'm like, if I can do 10 years with like a Breville or something like equivalent, then maybe because the La Marzocco ones are beautiful and like that would be awesome. But I'm not there yet. I haven't earned that.
Yeah, you gotta level up. I never want to have any. I want to get rid of every. I almost have. Actually, I have.
It's here now.
No coffee device. I've invested a substantial amount of money into coffee things throughout my life. They're all gone. All gone. Coffee comes from location. I like going to. It's like that and grocery store is the only two places I like going besides work. So I don't want to take it away. I'll just pay the extra money. I like, you see what the weirdos are dressed at like. I like that. Yeah. You make friends with them, but it's a friendship that's perfect where I go, hey, how are you? And they hand me the thing, and then I go, all right, I'm not going to see you for a while. And it's a dream setup for me, and I just only want to do that now.
I love that. I like to do both. I got a Mocha Master a few years ago. I really feel like Mocha Master should be like paying me at this point, the amount of people that I've influenced to get a Mocha Master.
It's the best for drip coffee. It doesn't get better.
The best for drip coffee. So beautiful to look at. Like just kind of like, I love everything about it. I have the butter yellow one.
Oh, very
what
cool
do we have,
choice.
Timothy brought his here at the
I think we just have.
Is it the brown?
Yeah, it's like a bronzy kind of colored one. Yeah. Like a, looks like that one Land Rover that like rich moms have.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I want the Supreme one. I'm not gonna lie. I want the Supreme Mocha Master.
The streetwear Mocha Master. Yeah. That's cool. All right, here we go. Water. This is regular water brands. Do you know what I mean like bottled water?
Okay. Let me think.
You've been in and out of airports. You have to have a strong...
I have some favorite. Yeah. I mean, my number one, there's no question in my mind, my number one is Essentia. I love Essentia.
Essentia's okay, so we're dealing with Essentia. I don't know how to... I can't rank it as my number one, I don't think. But it has to be up there because it's good. And consistent.
If it's in the store and I'm getting a bottle of water, I'm getting it. It's like there's no question. It's like that's definitely my number one. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like I like saying Essentia and like this is the name recognition. I love.
You like that it looks kind of sporty.
It looks kind of sporty. I like that. But yeah, like if it's in the gas station or the the airport or wherever I am, I'm getting the Essentia. I would say number two would be like a Smart Water, like something like that. I think I like that kind, like a whatever that's called. Like I like that kind of water, like
good
the water,
spout.
Like the electrolyte water.
Oh, exactly. I like an electrolyte water. Yeah. I think that would be like my go-to. But then I would say like if they don't have either of those, there's like some of those brands that I don't really like. Like there's like the one with the really big cap. I'm like I don't really like that. There's
about Evian.
No, I like Evian. That's something I think that if they don't have either of those two, I'm gonna go like the nicest looking spring water that they have.
Yeah.
So if it's Evian, I don't love Aquafina, but if they have Aquafina, then I'll do that.
It's not great. Never.
It's not great. You never Dasani. Like Disgusting. I'd rather just get dehydrated than drink Dasani. My mom really loves Dasani, and it's like a thing where she'll like hand me a bottle of Dasani, and I'm just like, there's salty. It just tastes salty.
Yeah, 100%. It tastes like it's got salt in it.
Yeah. And then but like a a Fiji or an Evian or a like something like that I'm into. There's one in Texas that I think it's literally just called Texarkana water that's like in a big it's like a big bottle that's like got a red label. I really like that. For some reason that one's like I'm thinking of that. That's a really good one. Mountain Valley I love like that, all of the like just like whatever the nicest spring water would be my third choice if they don't have Essentia or like a Smart Water.
Hey, right on.
Yeah. I forgot about Smart Water, and you're right; those taste smoother than others.
Yeah.
So I get it. I think
Smart Water they typically have at like any airport store.
That's fair. They're always there. Yeah. It's a safety.
They're always going to be there. Yeah.
Airports have gotten better though, because you can get the major. It's not. It used to only be Dasani, which was the worst, and it was always at the bottom, and it was always lukewarm.
Yeah.
Now I go Evian number one. I like it's kind of got like a wide mouth on it. You know what I'm talking about? It's a little more open. It's nice. Yeah. And it looks fancy, kind of. Like a fancy bathroom.
And it feels fancy in like an 80s way. You know what I mean? Like there's something very classic.
My entire view of like wealth is basically from late 80s, early 90s movies. So if it wasn't rich from that era, then it doesn't register.
Null and void.
Totally.
And then I think I think Essentia might be right behind that one, then Fiji.
Yeah, okay. Fiji with the photo. The photo, it makes it just so luxurious.
And the square bottle. I'm like, square bottle. They're doing something different. Got to give them props for that. Snaps.
But you're like in a car, and a Fiji's psychotic. It doesn't fit in anything. It's like a pain in the ass. It doesn't fit in a door. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it is. That's true.
Okay. Don't know if you drink or not. Cocktail?
I do drink.
Okay.
I would say, like alcoholic beverage.
It's like the least interesting to me, to be honest with you.
I only drink like three things, alcoholic beverage wise these days, because I don't drink a ton. But I think that my definitive ranking would be number three is gonna be like a nice tequila with soda water. That's like kind of what I always drink if I'm like at a show or like at a work function. If I'm drinking at all, it's always tequila soda.
Yeah, and it's solid. Yeah.
Solid is gonna be the least hangovery, and it's just like I think tequila gives you a little energy, like we call it like a night coffee. It's like it wakes you up a little bit. So that's like if I'm at if it's like something like that, then I'm gonna have a tequila soda, like just a regular bar. Number two is like a really nice red wine. I do really like I've kind of dabbled in kind of started to get into natural wine, but I'm really just I really prefer red wine over. I kind of like orange wine, but I'm like I don't really like white wine, but I'm more of a red wine drinker, and it would be red wine. But my number one, if I'm like going to a nice dinner and I'm gonna have a cocktail, I'm always gonna have a dirty martini. That's just my very favorite.
That feels on brand for your style and the whole.
Totally.
That's great. Yeah, and it's like I actually think I agree. It's like the best. It's the best restaurant drink you can. If you're at a restaurant and you're getting not a wine, that's the one.
A dirty martini is with the olives, correct?
Yeah,
that's
correct.
What signifies it.
It's with a little bit of olive brine as well.
You do a vodka or a gin?
Gin, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably. I don't mind a vodka though. People shit on it, but I'm okay with it.
I don't hate vodka, but I really those are like the only things that I ever order if I'm like getting alcohol. I like as a young person, I drank a lot of whiskey. I'm like, I can't even imagine what drinking whiskey feel like.
Too much now.
It's just too much. And same with beer. Like I grew up playing in rock bands, so I like grew up drinking beer at shows, and I'm like, I can drink like one beer now, and then I'm like full.
What about best show beer? There's only like 3 brands that would be at a punk show. What are the ones?
It's so funny because I think that if I'm getting a beer at like a show, I've literally turned into my father and I'm getting a Miller Lite. That's like
hell yeah,
same.
Miller Lite. Like they don't really have those at like punk bars and stuff a lot of times. So I would probably go like Tecate or Modelo, like something like that.
This is the right choice. It's either Miller Lite. You're right. They almost never have it. That's the only beer I'd have in my house, and you get like 8 of them and they last 6 months.
Totally.
And you know what I've been doing? I've let myself off the hook anymore with drinking because I don't drink anymore. Because you move here and we just smoke weed and then you never do anything else. And
totally.
Life's great. So you do I'll just open it, have like 2 sips, dump it just right away. Because I only want the first 2 sips anyway. It's kind of bad after that. It gets warm and it's gross and just throw it away. The other thing I would encourage you to give a try to is a new thing I invented. I know you didn't say it. You say you don't like white wine, but this would work with orange wine. It's just water wine. So what you do is it's like mostly water, like 3/4 water, the rest wine, a little bit of lemon zest. That's it. And it's very nice.
That sounds nice.
No hangover.
Would you do it with a bubbly, like almost like a spritz?
I would encourage you to. I like it with ice and regular water. So I'm just watering it down as much as possible. Totally. But you could have 8 water wines and drive if you wanted to be honest with you. Like it's not
I love the name.
You know what I mean?
Water wine. Just a water wine. You could market this. I feel like you could sell this.
Yeah, it would be saving. You'd imagine the margins would be insane too.
Yeah,
because you'd sell it at an alcohol store, or liquor store,
alcohol store,
or and it's just mainly water. But it's got to be nice. It's got to be the nicer waters. Sparkling water though does work really well.
Sure,
you can do that too. Actually, I think if you were doing like an orange wine instead of a white, it might even be better.
A bubble, like a bubble and then like a citrus.
I also think like the natural red wines, what do they call like chuggable wines? I don't like that. That's what they say. That would be nice as a water wine as well, I think. But I've not experimented, so I don't know. I'd actually go a little lime zest instead in that case too. I think that would be almost like a cranberry juice. More, I think I probably just want a cranberry juice.
Totally. It's funny. It reminds me of a friend. I was at Pitchfork Music Festival either last year or the year before, and I'm like, it feels like a fever dream, but a friend of mine was there and she was drinking backstage. Like, I was like, what is that? And she was like, oh, it's just like alcoholic water. And I was like a hard seltzer. And she was like, yes, but it's just water. And I'm like, what? I didn't know that was a thing. And I haven't seen it
like
since,
alcohol,
but it was basically just like a boozy water. And I'm like, I haven't seen it before or since, and I'm like, I wonder if they were like testing it in the backstage of like a music festival to like see if anybody liked it. But it might be a thing. I'm curious if anyone has heard of it. Please let me know.
It's just like ethanol and water.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm just like,
yeah, I can't imagine what she was like. Do you want to try it? And I was like, actually, no, but I'm curious. But yeah, no. Wine has a taste to it, though. So
So it's just a little bit of a taste. It's nice, and then it's refreshing. I wish there was a situation where you could have a non-alcoholic shot. People aren't going to like this, and I'm just workshopping this now. But I like kind of the feeling and the sensation, like nasally, like wasabi from a shot. But I don't want it to have alcohol in it. I just want that experience, the physical experience.
Right. I feel like I love, because so many people around me don't drink anymore. And I'm like, and I don't drink a ton. So I love that I feel like more and more bars are just like being very conscientious of like having NA options. But I'm like, where's the ginger? I'm like, ginger shot, something like that.
That would be great. You're right. That's what bars should have.
Yeah. Like just because, there is something nice and celebratory about that feeling. But it's like, I don't really need the booze.
No, I don't want to get like drunk, Okay, last one, and then we'll let you go. This is what we're calling either vintages or long-lost drinks. This is drinks that have been discontinued.
Okay.
Do you have any for this?
I love it. I already immediately know what my number one is.
Oh, my God. Let's go.
I could see it in your face that you had it.
It's going to be controversial. Number three, I'm a child of the 90s, so I have to say Surge. I mean, like, R.I.P. Surge. I would love to just have a sip of a Surge, just to try it, because I just have such fond memories of like the rollout around Surge and, just how much I loved it as a kid.
Do you remember Vault?
Kind of. Yeah, like kind of.
It was like, it kind of sucked, but like it was like the friend, and there was Storm too. That was the other one.
I don't remember Storm.
Storm and Vault and Surge were the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surge was the best.
Surge was the best. Yeah, Surge was just really remember like me and my cousins all like just drinking Surge and like playing PlayStation, and it was just cool. Life was good. And then I'm trying to think what like the middle one would be. I mean, I'm starting to think of just like sodas. It's all just like mostly sodas besides the last one. But
will you drink a soda now, or are you off sodas?
I don't really do a ton of soda. I do like diet soda here and there. I was a big, like all through high school and early college, I was like basically addicted to Diet Coke and drank so much. So every now and then I'm like, I'll have a Diet Coke here and there.
My deathbed meal is 2 Marlboro Lights and a Diet Coke. That's what I want before I die. And I cannot have that now because they're both addictions, 100%, but I love them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally. I do love like a diet soda every now and then. My husband also is from the Midwest. He's a big soda drinker. And so we both like, will every now and then have like, I'll have a Diet Coke. He'll have like a Mountain Dew or something. And it's just like a treat.
Just a little twisted treat.
Yes, exactly. But I don't know why I'm thinking of like whatever the like red Dr. Pepper was, Code Red, or that's Mountain Dew. There was like a red Dr. Pepper. Yeah. Do you guys remember this?
You're not talking about Mr. Pibb, right? We're talking about...
Maybe it was Pibb, but there was like a red one. Like if for some reason it was
red. The liquid was red?
I'm like convinced
like, was it just cherry Dr. Pepper?
It wasn't even...
You know what it is?
No, you know what it is? I'm sorry. I've got a new number 2. It's Vanilla Coke. Which Vanilla Coke, like the original recipe of Vanilla Coke. Do you guys remember what that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, of course.
That was huge. I loved that. Delicious. My number 1 drink is absolutely... unequivocally Sparks. I have said so many times I would love because Sparks, the first time that I ever had alcohol and like got a little drunk was on Sparks. I had like an orange tongue my entire senior year of high school. Like it was like a thing where I'm like I just for the memories. It was disgusting. I would never drink more than like half of one, but I'm like I would love to just have one more sip of Sparks.
Just one more Sparks.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about Sparks, but that was like a thing.
That was an era. It was literally everybody's mouths were orange. We were all drinking Sparks. We were all like, because it had legitimately had caffeine in it. It was caffeine and alcohol.
Is this is this like the Four Loko before Four Loko?
Yeah.
Yes, it was pre Four Loko. Four Loko was insane. Like, and I only had Four Loko a couple of times because it was just like, I mean, it was
it's a speedball.
It was great. I mean, because it also was like 12% alcohol. So it was like you were just, and caffeinated. So you were just like, it was like a recipe to just black out. It was insane. And I'm glad that it doesn't exist anymore. And same with Sparks. It's like, I'm glad it doesn't exist anymore, but I also, just for old time's sake, would love one more Sparks.
Yeah. See, I was staunchly straight edge until I was I think almost 22. So I fully missed out on the Four Loko, but I so badly, a couple things. One, I wish I had the experience of coming up on alcohol when you're 17, 16. Like when your buddy's like, I got a bunch of it. That was probably quite a feeling. Two, I wish that I could have experienced trying to see this happens when I do this.
When he does this thing, we can't figure out how to turn it off.
Yeah. So two,
just let it happen.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's so many.
Release the bush.
Yeah. Separate. It seems to happen when you put two fingers up.
I wish that I also experienced the joy of coming up on weed, because I feel like that would have also been a fun thing to seek out and to come up on. Three, I wish that I could have experienced Four Loko in the heyday. I've heard just wild stories, and I just didn't get to experience it. And it just feels like one of those things. It's not, you cannot replicate it, you know?
It won't happen again.
Yeah. It won't happen. Yeah, it's wild to think. Like when I think about it now, I'm 35 now. I started like kind of drinking when I was, I think like 16 or 17. So like late teens. And like I started to just like have drinks at parties and stuff. And in some ways I'm like, that was just correct for me. That's what made sense. I feel like it like, you know, my relationship with alcohol was kind of determined by like learning how to drink at a young age. And then kind of now I'm like, I don't really drink a ton, and I have like a pretty healthy relationship with it, because I had like a wild relationship with it as a teenager. And
already did it. Yeah.
Already did it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, when I think about that now, I'm like, I think about other 16-year-olds drink. I'm like, that's insane that I was like drinking at that age, and that I was like to do that at that age. But like we all did. Four Loko in its heyday was scary. Like I think when it came out and it was like really popular, I was probably like 21 or 22, like had just turned 21. And it was like, even though I, again, was like, it's still in this phase of just like, I'm young and alcohol is super fun and like, we're all getting drunk and whatever. And I think that I still was like kind of afraid of it, because it was just like, it was wild, you know?
Yeah.
It just, it was just scary.
Like, there's these like isolated, it always feels like about a year or two of things that happen that are bad, and then they get them under control. I mean, I think that like this is kind of the Juul era. I mean, people are still getting those, but I mean, it felt like there was a window where it's like, what is it? And by the time they figured out what it is, everyone was addicted to it. Same thing with Four Loko. We got to get this out of there because people are dying left and right. No one wants to be around a guy who's a cokehead and an alcoholic at the same time. But that was like the Four Loko era. And then
it truly was, yeah.
Like, did your scene have? I remember, and I don't know why this was a thing, but Rumpelmans was a huge deal in the punk scene where I grew up with, like that. And what was the cinnamon one? Was that? Am I saying? Is that the same thing?
Goldschlager?
Not Goldschlager. It was
Fireball.
Fireball. That was the other one.
Oh my god, yeah. Both Rumpelmans and Fireball were both huge. Specifically in Philly, there was this house.
That feels correct.
R.I.P. This amazing house that did punk shows, and we would always drink Rumpelmans there. Ava, the person who did shows, that was like her favorite. And that was like, it was called Golden Tea House was the name of the house, but it was just like we were all drinking Rumpelmans at Golden Tea House. Fireball swearing was like that. I always think about swearing when I think about Fireball, because we were all really into it, but it also, both of those it was dangerous. I think the irony of it all too is like, I didn't really smoke weed in high school, and I was like kind of afraid of weed, but now I'm like, I definitely am more into weed now as an adult and less into alcohol. And I think that I was really like terrified of it as a kid, and just like, I'm like,
well, it wasn't like cute and pretty at the time. It was like in a bag and stunk, and you know what I mean? It was like a whole thing.
Really well. Yeah. I say it's
amazing.
Yeah. It's no longer a thing you get from like your buddy's uncle from out of state who comes in every once in a while. Like, you can just go to the store and
you just go to like a nice place where they give you things, and there's all sort of options, and it's all gold and pretty. It's nice. Yeah.
Especially I feel like California and Colorado specifically.
Oh yeah.
It's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. We invented making it more like a J. Crew experience than it's nice that way. So yeah, I get it. All right. Well, Alice, I think we can think of other topics if you want to keep going, but I feel like you probably have things to do, and we eventually have to leave this room. But this has been so much fun and such an honor, because we're such huge fans. So this was really cool.
Likewise, y'all. Thank you so much for having me. I had such a blast. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Well, you be in touch. You ever need anything from us? You know us.
Don't hesitate.
So, yeah.
Totally. If I'm ever in that zone, I'll hit you guys up.
Please do.
Great. Denver, Boulder in a while, but like one of these days, I'm bound to be out there.
Okay. Come through. Let us know. We'd love to show you around.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.